Hey guys, tonight we tiptoe into the kind of darkness that doesn't just dim your vision, it hushes your thoughts. You're wrapped in thick reindeer hide, your fingers stiff inside mittens too clumsy to itch your nose, and your breath keeps fogging your eyelashes. Snow creaks under your boots, sharp and deliberate, like you're being watched by the land itself. Welcome to the Arctic Circle, where the wind talks more than the people do, and the silence is always suspicious. You probably won't survive this without at least a few frostbitten toes, but don't worry, no one survives the cold of history entirely intact. We're going somewhere ancient, older than your grandmother's stew recipe, and a lot stranger. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to please subscribe to my channel and share your location and local time, only if you genuinely enjoy my content. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You shuffle forwards into the twilight though. Twilight's a generous word. This far north, night lasts for months. The moon is hiding behind a curtain of ice mist, and the stars are so sharp they feel like they could pop the sky open if you look too hard. Somewhere in the distance, a reindeer snorts. You stop, you listen, because here, even a reindeer sneeze might mean something sacred. The first thing you learn is that the snow remembers everything. Your footprints crackle and settle, but they stay. Unlike in a city, no one is coming to erase your path. Each step is like scribbling your name in a secret guestbook, and someone or something will eventually read it. You reach a ring of black stones arranged in the snow, not natural, not recent. The wind shifts and brings the scent of burned herbs and damp hide. A single figure waits there. No fire, no greeting, just a presence, like the hush before a thunderstorm. She wears layers of fur stitched with bone charms. A shaman, probably older than she looks, though no one here keeps birthday candles. You sit without being told. You don't speak. That would be rude. Instead, you wait, because here, stories don't begin with introductions. They begin with weather, and whether the spirits feel like listening. Eventually she speaks, but not to you. She turns her face to the snow, then whispers something low and rhythmic. The syllables are slanted and odd. You can't tell if she's chanting or asking a question. Then she lifts her hand and points not at you, not at the stars, but at a set of hoofprints in the snow, fresh, leading nowhere. You squint. Hoofprints, this far from the herd. She speaks again, this time louder. They ask riddles, first child. The reindeer, I mean. They don't come if you answer plainly. A test, you glance at her. Her expression doesn't change. Maybe that was the riddle. Here's your first fact for the night. In many Arctic cultures, especially among the Sami and Chukchi peoples, shamans weren't just religious figures. They were therapists, weather reporters, translators between humans and animals, and sometimes inventors of language itself. And when you live in a place where the sun ghosts off for months at a time, riddles aren't just fun, they're survival. Why? Because riddles let you say the truth without angering the spirits who hate being talked about directly. So yeah, next time you're trying to find your missing sock, maybe ask it a riddle first, just in case it's being borrowed by a bored reindeer ghost. Anyway, back in the snow circle, the shaman stands and steps toward the hoofprints. She doesn't follow them. She circles them, slowly tapping her drum, soft low, like heartbeat muffled by scarf. The sound curls out across the white silence like smoke without fire. You feel something shift in your chest, like your own breath is walking away from you. Then she speaks again. They left this question for you. What feeds without eating, moves without legs, and knows when you are watching? You try to answer. Wind. She doesn't nod. She doesn't frown. She just says, the wind thinks you're flattering it. This is how it starts. One quirky tidbit: most people never hear Arctic shamans used riddles to interpret reindeer behavior because they believe direct language could trap souls. Not just the souls of spirits, but their own. That's why even today, some elders won't answer direct questions about sacred things. They'll give you a story, a metaphor, or a recipe for soup. If you're clever, you'll find your answer before the carrots are done. Now historians still argue whether these riddles were literal communication with animals, or simply elaborate ways of encoding ecological wisdom? Did reindeer actually understand the riddles? Probably not. But maybe that wasn't the point. Maybe the riddles were for you, not for the deer. The shaman gives you a soft glance, half smile, half warning. Speak only when you are certain your voice belongs here, she murmurs. Then she hands you a lump of snow. Inside it, wrapped in a scrap of dried moss, is something shiny, a sliver of obsidian shaped like a tear. You'll need this later, she says, turning her back and walking away across the snow. Not toward a village, not toward shelter, just into the white. You're left alone in the circle of black stones, the riddle echoing quietly in your mind. What feeds without eating, moves without last legs, and knows when you are watching? The wind sighs again, curling around your shoulders like an invisible animal. And somewhere out beyond the trees, the reindeer snorts once more. Not annoyed, not afraid, just amused. The snow crunches beneath your boots like sugar-glazed sand, and the tear of obsidian in your palm feels warmer than it should. You tuck it into your sleeve, close to your wrist, pulse, an ancient place for secrets. Around you, the Arctic twilight stretches wide like an unsaid sentence. The cold here doesn't bite, it waits, patient, curious, like a reindeer just out of sight. You follow no trail. That's the trick in these places. Trails are for people who know where they've been. You're walking toward where riddles live, or maybe you're being led. Either way, your steps draw you downhill toward the flatlands where the snow folds into itself and the trees thin out like old hair. This is reindeer country. And tonight you learn about laundry. Yep, laundry. Because brace yourself, long before anyone whispered to a herd about riddles and spirits, someone had to wash the shaman's robes. And believe it or not, those robes didn't clean themselves just because they were sacred. Even ancient mystics tracked mud, especially the ones who danced with elk hooves tied to their ankles. That's your mainstream fact for this section. In ancient Arctic communities, it wasn't uncommon for spiritual garments, whether Sashasami Gaktis or Evenki shaman coats, to be regularly cleaned by young initiates. And not just for hygiene. Cleanliness was symbolic. If the robe was dirty, maybe the spirits weren't listening. Or worse, maybe they were listening too much. So there you are, now half bent over a cracked stream bed, holding a scrap of something that looks suspiciously like the hem of a robe, and trying to decide whether this counts as divine laundry or just someone's lost mitten. You give it a sniff. Cedar smoke, birch oil, probably shamanic, definitely pungent. You follow the edge of the creek. Frozen solid in places, it murmurs below like a ghost swallowing its secrets. Then you spot it, a line of bones arranged along the bank, not buried, laid out. Clean white, sun-licked. Vertebrae, maybe reindeer, maybe not. Each bone has a hole drilled clean through. Not from age, from tools. Someone made music here. And here comes your fringe tidbit. Some Arctic shamans used reindeer bones to craft flutes that weren't meant to be played in melodies, but in rhythms that echoed hoofbeats, literally using the dead to call the living. Whether it worked depends who you ask. Some say the herds came closer when the music played. Others say the flutes were played after a hunt to thank the spirit of what had been taken. Historians still argue whether these ritual sounds were actually intended to manipulate herds or just honor them. Was it practical reindeer herding psychology, or just good manners with a side of superstition? You pause and press your palm to one of the bone flutes. It's cold, but not lifeless, the kind of cold that still remembers breath. You're being watched, not just by snow hares or distant owls, but by something older than both. You feel it in your spine, like the prickling hush before someone says your name from behind. So you speak, not loud, not soft, just enough. Is this your song, you ask the trees, or mine? A shadow moves just once across the ridge. 4 legs, antlers, gone. The shaman's riddle flickers back. What feeds without eating, moves without legs, and knows when you are watching. You look at the creek. It's not moving, but you know it wants to. That's how it stays fed by flow. You look at the bone flute. Motionless, but it sings if you let it. You look at the shadow that was there but isn't anymore. You whisper time, but no answer comes. Just wind again. and a faint hum under the ice like something stirring in sleep. Your gloves are soaked. The hem scrap you were sniffing earlier now lies across your boot. On a whim, you pick it up and tie it around your wrist like a bracelet. The moss bundle with the obsidian lump presses against it, and for a second it feels like a pulse. Not yours. Another one. You keep walking. The path curves upward now into a knotted grove of trees where lichen drips like melted lace and bark peels back in scrolls of frostbite poetry. Here, it's not about riddles. It's about rhythm. You start to hear it a beat, soft and low, echoing like heartbeats through mittens. Not the shaman's drum this time. Hooves. A herd. You freeze. There's a rule: you don't approach the reindeer. You wait. Let them notice you. Let them decide. So you sit. You lower yourself into the snow, arrange your coat like a snowdrift, and breathe slow. In. Out. Don't move too much. Reindeer don't care about your Wi-Fi password or your job stress. They care about stillness. Stillness to them means you're not a threat, or a wolf, or a fool. The herd doesn't stampede. It trickles forward like snowmelt down a hill, one cautious step, one frozen sniff at a time. The calves wobble behind their mothers. Antlers glint like silver spoons under the moonlight. You lock eyes with one. She's small grey, scarred on the left ear. Her gaze is old, though wiser than yours by several lifetimes. And something about her posture, the way she leans forward like she's reading, makes you wonder, is she going to ask you a riddle? But no words come. Just silence, the kind that wraps you up in it like a second coat. You blink, and she's gone. The whole herd too. Vanished back into the frost forest like a dream you almost remembered. You rise, dust snow from your knees, and start walking again. One footprint at a time. But now something's different. The cold doesn't sting, the night doesn't spook, and you carry in your bones the faint music of wind-carved flutes and a story you're not quite done telling yet. You wake not from sleep, but from the long trudge of memory pretending to be a walk. Your knees ache, or maybe that's just imagination. In this dreamlike landscape, it's hard to tell what's yours and what's borrowed from history. You pause, reach into your coat and touch the scrap of cloth and obsidian bundle near your wrist. Still warm, still pulsing like a low drumbeat. You've reached the edge of something. It's not marked by signs or gates, of course. Arctic shamans didn't do signage, but there's a certain stillness here, like the world itself is listening. A circle of stones outlines the edge of a clearing, and just beyond it, a low conical hut with hide walls and smoke curling from a centre hole. It looks like someone stitched a tent from the sky's leftover thoughts and set it gently on the snow. Welcome to the sacred fire. Inside, it's warmer than it should be. You duck through the flap and step onto pine needles and moss. The smoke isn't harsh, it's sweet, clinging to your skin like sleep does when you've overslept by centuries. And there's someone here, not a full figure, a silhouette, female maybe, or neither. They stir the coals with a carved antler tine and hum in a rhythm that matches your heartbeat without trying. Sit, the figure murmurs, not looking up. You've walked far in story. You sit, and they begin to speak, not in sentences, but in layered metaphors. The snow forgets your name, but remembers your weight. The fox leaves no paw prints when followed by a lie. You nod, pretending you understand. But of course, this is the thing: the riddles aren't made to be solved. They're made to open doors. Mainstream historical fact incoming and sees in many Arctic and subarctic shamanic traditions, particularly among the Sami, Chukchi and Evenki peoples, spiritual teaching was often done through indirect speech. Riddles, metaphors and paradoxical statements were preferred to blunt truths. The belief was that clarity was dangerous, even disrespectful. Spirits appreciated cleverness, not literalism. So if you asked a shaman a direct question, you'd likely get a poetic riddle in return. The figure across from you taps a stone, then another, a rhythmic pattern, tap, 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 then silence. You realize it's a test. You reach forward and tap one back. Tap, tap, tap. They chuckle, not wrong, which frankly might be the highest compliment you get tonight. Now here's a fringe tidbit to stir your cocoa. Some Arctic shamans believed reindeer could be messengers between worlds, living bridges to the spirit realm. So when they spoke to them in riddles, it wasn't just to be poetic. It was to encode sacred messages that only spirits and certain animals could read. They believed the reindeer could carry those riddles into dreams, into births, even into the aurora itself. You look into the fire, you see hooves, not burning, not walking, just standing right there in the flame. Reindeer hooves, unmoving, like they've been waiting for you. Then slowly they start to rise, and with them, the fire bends upward. It doesn't roar. It flows like a slow-motion geyser vertical river of warmth and smoke. The figure across from you exhales and leans back, whispering. The veil thins when flame stands tall. Historians still argue whether the trance states of Arctic shamans, often triggered by drumming smoke and rhythmic breathing, were hallucinogenic, spiritual, or performance art for a deeply symbolic culture. There's no consensus, but sitting here watching the flame stretch and bow, you're not particularly worried about academic peer review. You're busy not blinking, because in the fire the hooves start to move, not away. Toward you, they step with the care of snow on glass, flickering gently one step at a time. And behind them, something forms. A face. Number mask. Carved wood, painted with charcoal and berry juice. Long nose, wide eyes. Not human, not quite animal. You feel your breath go shallow. The figure nods to you. Now speak. You don't know the language, but you say something anyway. Something that feels like a whisper shaped by snowfall and riverbeds. Your mouth forms it before your mind catches up. The fire listens. The figure listens. Then, like a page turning in wind, the flames collapse back into coals. Silence. The figure across from you stands. You are not done, but the herd waits. Go. You rise. The coals snap once behind you like a finger reminding a child to take their lunch. Outside, the sky has shifted from deep blue to that pre-dawn grey that makes everything look like it's made of stone. Your feet crunch new snow. You don't remember sleeping, but your bones feel rested. You walk again, not aimless, pulled, like something ahead is already telling your story and waiting for you to arrive at the end. And then you see it etched into a standing rock partially buried in drift. A symbol. You've seen it before, on old carvings, on the scrap tied to your wrist. It's not a letter, it's a question. And then suddenly you understand it's not you who's meant to answer. It's the reindeer. And they're coming. The hooves come first. Faint thuds against compact snow, like someone drumming softly on a thick wool blanket. You freeze. Not because you're scared, but because the sound feels old. Older than stories, older than tools. It sounds like something the earth does when no one's looking. And then they appear. Reindeer. Dozens of them. Their breath mists in the cold, catching soft amber in the early sky like wisps from a pipe dream. Their antlers, spindly branching chandeliers of bone, glint with frost. A few are decorated, not with ribbon or harness, but with tiny carvings tied in leather bones, etched with spirals, small discs of wood inked with moon shapes. You blink and swear you see one with beads braided into its fur. You remember the figure's riddle from the fire. The snow forgets your name, but remembers your weight. Well, the snow remembers them. The herd halts. They don't stampede, don't panic. They regard you like you've been expected for a while, but are late. One in the middle steps forward, a female maybe. She's got a chunk missing from one ear. You lock eyes, not like pet owner eye contact, like jury deliberation. She lowers her head slightly, and with that she turns. The rest follow, and of course you do too. Mainstream, historical fact time. Yes, real reindeer herding was central to the culture and survival of many Arctic peoples, especially among the Sami. These weren't just food animals, they were transportation economy and sometimes spiritual beings. In traditional Sami belief systems, certain reindeer were believed to be born under a sacred sky and therefore acted as soul guides. If you were very lucky or unlucky, you might get one as a companion in life, or in the next one. You're not entirely sure which you're walking into. The herd leads you across the tundra, where the snow seems to thin out, revealing soft lichen underneath reindeer delicacy, by the way. Occasionally they stop graze or just stare at nothing. You begin to notice something peculiar. Some of them tilt their heads when you breathe too loudly. Others glance your way when your thoughts wander. Like they're tuning in not to what you say but what you think. Quirky tidbit alert, certain shamans believe that reindeer could detect lies not from tone or body language, but from your dreams. If your sleep was clouded or dishonest, a reindeer would avoid you. But if you dreamed with intention, clarity, metaphor, longing, they'd walk right beside you. You make a mental note to dream more honestly. The snow deepens again, the herd picks up pace. You begin to lose track of time, but not of rhythm. The beat of the hooves becomes the tempo of your thoughts. You stop forming sentences. You start breathing in riddles. And then you smell it, smoke. But not fire smoke, sweet smoke. You crest a small hill and see them tense. Low, fur-covered and steaming slightly. A nomadic camp. People move among the structures slowly like they're underwater. You see a woman drying fish on a rack of antlers. A child with soot on his cheeks watching the sky through a carved hoop. An elder seated near a wide drum slowly etching lines into the hide. You're waved in not by a hand, but by a nod. That's the thing here. Words are heavy, used rarely. Mostly people speak through nods, half smiles, or the occasional raised eyebrow that says, "Yes, I saw the fire spirits too, but let's eat first." You're offered broth. Warm, pungent. You drink, and then the drums begin. 1, then 2, then 5, not all in sync. They roll like waves against each other, some slow, some fast. You sit on a reindeer hide, trying to match your heartbeat to the rhythm, but give up quickly. The pattern changes too often. That's when you notice it. They're not drumming to summon anything. They're drumming to translate. The lead drummer stares into the center of the circle. A reindeer has entered calm eyes, half-lidded like it knows this drill. Around its neck is a thin band of woven sinew. Attached, a carved pendant. You squint. It's not decoration. It's a word. Well, more like a concept, something old and untranslatable. Historians still argue whether these drum rituals were literal conversations with animals or symbolic performances meant to guide community energy. But the older elders will whisper when they forget you're an outsider that reindeer sometimes answered. The reindeer snorts softly, the drum shifts tone. Someone speaks not in words, but in what sounds like wind curled into syllables. The air thickens. The reindeer steps closer to the center. It blinks slowly, then leans its head forward and taps the ground once with a hoof. A hush falls, then applause. Except it's not applause, it's breathing. Everyone breathes in at once as if they've just received a message. You feel it too, not in your head, in your ribs. Like a code that skipped the brain entirely. The shaman beside you leans close. Now your turn, they say. Oh boy, you don't know the language. But that's never stopped anyone in a dream. You rise, you walk to the center. The reindeer watches you, and you speak not in words, but images. You hum the feel of pine smoke. You murmur the ache of walking too far in boots too small. You whisper a riddle you just made up on the spot. What moves like fire but burns no one? The reindeer blinks, then it bows. And just like that, the crowd exhales again. You're in. You sit down again, still pulsing with the electric silence that followed your performance, conversation, whatever that was. The reindeer returns to its place near the fire, as though it's clocking out after a long shift, utterly unfazed. You, on the other hand, are now vibrating slightly with the absurdity of it all. You just spoke in riddles to a reindeer, and it bowed. This is not your average Tuesday. The shaman next to you chuckles softly, reading your bewilderment like a well-worn map. Don't overthink it, they murmur. That one likes jokes. You're not sure if they mean the riddle or you. Still, you're starting to feel something new belonging. Not quite like you've become one of them, but like you're less of a curiosity now. The kind of familiarity that lets people tease you about your awkward bow, or offer you more of that spicy fermented fish tea without asking if you like it. You don't, but you're drinking it anyway, because refusing feels rude, and because it kind of grows on you, like mold or folk music. Later that night, or what passes for night in this perpetual twilight, You follow the shaman down a snow-laced trail to what looks like a sacred spot. It's marked by antlers arranged in a spiral, old bones, wrapped in wool, and a tree stump painted with red ochre symbols that feel more dreamed than drawn. This, they say, is where riddles are born. You raise an eyebrow. The shaman shrugs. We don't write them. We listen for them. Riddles are just questions the land whispers. A mainstream historical fact floats to the surface. Many Arctic cultures, including the Nenets, the Evenki, and the Chukchi, relied heavily on oral traditions, not just for stories, but for survival. Riddles served practical purposes, teaching lessons, testing memory, passing down herbal knowledge, even navigating without a map. And of course, they also kept the kids entertained while it snowed sideways for 3 weeks. But here's the quirky bit. Some of the oldest riddles found in Arctic oral literature weren't meant to be solved. They were meant to be sat with, like meditation beads or weird uncles. Example: what has one leg but dances, has no eyes but weeps? The answer: nobody knows and nobody cares. The point is the pondering, the patient rolling around of language and image until your brain softens like reindeer cheese left too close to the hearth. It's not about solving, it's about stretching. As you sit near the stump, the shaman hands you a carved stick and a flat stone. Go ahead, they say. Go ahead what? Ask the land something. You blink. So you do. You etch a little spiral, then a crude image of your boot, then the symbol for sleep, which is apparently a fish with its eyes closed. You whisper, why do dreams forget the order of things? There's no answer, which means you did it right. The silence that follows isn't awkward. It's dense, like velvet. You could wrap yourself in it and sleep for a week, and maybe you will. That night, tucked inside a tent lined with moss and rabbit fur, you sleep deeply, but not dreamlessly. You find yourself walking across a frozen river, holding a lantern made of ice, chasing a reindeer with antlers shaped like questions. Every time you get close, it turns and says, try again. You wake with a smile. Historians still argue whether shamanic dream rituals were literal spiritual voyages or elaborate performances designed to organize a chaotic world. Some say it's all psychological symbolism. Others insist spirits are real and simply don't care if you believe in them. The reindeer don't weigh in, probably because they're tired of being asked. The next morning, the camp is already buzzing. The drums are quieter now, resting perhaps, but people move with purpose. It's migration day. Reindeer don't stay in one place, and neither do their people. The portable homes are folded, the hides bundled, the fire circles buried so as not to anger the land. Everyone knows their job, including you. You help fold a tent. You get teased for folding it inside out. You fix it. Someone hands you a braid of dried berries. You chew on it. It tastes like sour hope. The shaman walks beside you as the caravan begins moving east. We go where the riddles go, they say. You nod. It makes as much sense as anything else. As the day stretches, you fall into the rhythm of soft bells around the reindeers' necks, the crunch of snow under sleds, the low murmur of wind-threaded songs. It's hypnotic, meditative. At one point, a child asks you, do your reindeer talk in riddles too? You pause. No, you say, but they probably think we do. She nods solemnly, then skips off muttering what climbs without legs and cries when caught. Later, you'll wonder if she made that one up, or if the land whispered it to her. But for now, you just walk and dream and wonder what question the snow will ask next. The day bends gently toward dusk, though you wouldn't know it from the sky. Just a subtle shift in the blue-grey light, like someone turned down the saturation on the world. You walk with the others, your boots crunching into packed snow that's older than your country. It creaks like tired wood underfoot. You wonder how many feet, hooves and sleds have passed this way over the centuries, leaving nothing behind but softened trails and story crumbs. You find yourself walking beside an elder today, their fur hood pulled so tightly you can only see the glint of one eye and a nose that could probably chisel ice sculptures. They say nothing for a long time, just breathing in time with the bells. Then, almost without warning, they speak. Do you know they say how reindeer learn to find the north? You blink. Magnetic noses, a slow shake of the head. No, dreams. And just like that, you're back in the riddles again. Because here's the thing, no one tells you in school, reindeer migration patterns aren't just instinctual, they're spiritual. At least according to Arctic shamans, whose understanding of navigation isn't limited to maps and stars, but includes dreams, whispers, and the slow tilt of antlers toward the unseen. You hear the mainstream historical fact in your head like a classroom echo. In some Siberian cultures, reindeer weren't just transport animals. They were believed to be psychopomps, spiritual guides who could traverse both physical landscapes and the realms of the dead. Their movements weren't random. They followed paths carved by memory weather and sometimes riddles. The elder chuckles again. You think they walk in circles, but they walk in spirals, just very large ones. This apparently is hilarious. As you trudge on, you notice something odd. A line of reindeer break off from the caravan, moving toward a low hill striped with lichen and wind-worn stones. No one stops them. No one calls out. You turn to ask why and get a shrug. They have their own business. This is normal here. Reindeer autonomy. They'll return when they're ready or not at all. You get the sense that the humans don't own the reindeer so much as accompany them. Kind of like those weird friends who tag alongs on road trips but never chip in for gas and still get the best snacks. You pass a set of standing stones, not ancient monoliths, but simple tall rocks, leaned against each other like drunk cousins at a feast, the shaman points. This is where we tell riddles to the dead. You blink again. You're doing that a lot lately. They enjoy riddles, the shaman explains, but they're bad at punchlines. A fringe belief floats in several Arctic cultures. It's said that the dead are always listening, not in a spooky way, more like curious neighbors who stand quietly at the edge of the forest. You don't fear them. You just avoid saying anything too embarrassing. Which brings us to a weird little tidbit. There's documented evidence that some Arctic funerary practices involved leaving riddles or puzzles carved onto grave posts meant to entertain or occupy the spirits. Like giving a crossword to a ghost so it doesn't get bored and mess with your sled. Historians still argue whether these riddles were ceremonial or purely symbolic. Some insist they were messages to the ancestors. Others suggest they were a way to keep kids from asking, "Are we there yet?" during the funerals. You lean on your walking stick and try one aloud. What eats silence and spits out names? The wind answers maybe. The caravan eventually stops near a narrow stream, only visible when you squint. You can hear it more than see it, which feels poetic somehow. Camp is set up again in practiced motion. You help raise the tent this time without inverting it. Progress. Later by the fire, another riddle surfaces from the lips of a child with cheeks red as boiled beets. What walks when still and stands when fleeing? Nobody answers. Everyone laughs. Apparently that's the whole game. You close your eyes and feel the smoke braid itself into your hair. Someone's carving antlers behind you. Someone else is whistling a tune that might have been invented 1,000 years ago or just yesterday by a sleepy herder. You think about how the modern world explains everything with charts and citations and heat maps. But here, a whisper from a tree stump feels just as valid, maybe more so. The night deepens. Someone hums low and long into a drum. It's not music exactly. It's more like weather made from sound. You lie back on your mat, look up at the two close stars, and wonder how it is that people with so little stuff have so many stories. There's a dream that night, soft and snowblind. You're following the reindeer who left earlier. You don't know how, but your feet find their tracks even through wind and time. You climb a hill that shouldn't be there and enter a doorway made of antlers. Inside is a room full of riddles tied up in red string like meat at a market. One falls into your hands. You wake before you read it. Dawn arrives not with fanfare, but with a bluer kind of light, like a fresh page. You eat a meal of fermented something and a handful of sour berries. You thank the reindeer. You nod to the elder. You're not sure if today will be like yesterday, but you're also not sure you'd mind if it were. Because the land still speaks in questions, and you're starting to understand its accent. Word count 108. Awaiting continue. Bandanoi, continue. ChatGPT.noi section bay. You wake to a sound that's more feeling than noise, like the inside of a hollow drum that someone is dreaming into from very far away. For a second, you don't know where you are. Then the cold kisses your nose, your fingertips flex inside fur mittens, and the familiar reindeer musk air brings you right back. You're still here, still following the quiet maps sketched in hooves and riddles. Today, the shaman walks ahead of the group. Their staff leaves deep, deliberate holes in the snow, like punctuation marks in a story only they can read. A pale fox darts across your path, then disappears under a stone ledge. No one reacts. Apparently, foxes here are just punctuation too. You fall into step with one of the younger herders. They offer you something chewy wrapped in birch bark. You ask what it is. Reindeer stomach, they say. You blink, then chew. It tastes like regret and smoke. They laugh at your face. That means you'll live a long time. You've heard stranger logic, probably even said some yourself. The caravan pauses at midday, beside a grove of stunted trees twisted by wind and time into the shapes of dancers mid-spin. You sit with your back against one and feel the bones of it settle against your own. Someone hands you a pouch of warm tea made from tundra moss and melted snow. It tastes like Earth's last secret. And then the drum. It begins again, low and slow like a distant heartbeat. Except it's not distant at all. The shaman has started the ritual. You are invited to join, not because you're special, but because everyone is invited. That's the rule. You sit, cross-legged on a thick reindeer pelt as the circle forms. Smoke from the fire curls around the group like a lazy snake. Someone throws a bundle of herbs into the flames. They sizzle like gossip. This time the shaman doesn't speak. They just tap the drum, once, twice, then faster. A rhythm builds and your thoughts begin to slow. Here comes a historical fact in Arctic shamanic traditions, particularly among the Chukchi Evenki and Sami drumming was a tool not just for music, but for travel, not on land, but between worlds. The beat mimicked the hoofballs of reindeer or the flutter of spirit wings. A shaman's trance wasn't a performance, it was a commute. You're not entirely sure you believe in spirit travel, but your spine tingles anyway. The fringe tidbit. Some Sami shamans believed that reindeer antlers were antennae for cosmic signals, tiny transmitters that could tune into the weather of the spirit realm, which makes sense if you've ever stared at a rack of antlers long enough. They look like lightning, if lightning were polite. Historians still argue whether these trances were purely symbolic or actual altered states you think to yourself even as your own body starts to hum. The drum builds. Faster now. Your eyes are half-lidded. Shapes begin to rise from the smoke. Not figures exactly, more like suggestions. You think you see a woman made of snow, a man with antlers for hands, a child riding the back of a raven. You're either dreaming or very awake. The shaman hums a melody with no words, and it tugs at you like a thread. The others begin to sing softly in harmony with the drum. You catch fragments of their voices, to the hill where the sky bends, to the river with no echo, where the reindeer carries light. You hum too. You don't know the tune. That doesn't seem to matter. Then silence. The drum stops. No one speaks for a full minute. Not out of awkwardness, but respect. You're not supposed to rush back. Like when your soul takes the red-eye flight and needs time to stretch its legs before re-entering. After people begin to laugh and stretch and sip tea like nothing happened. Someone burps. A child starts chasing a dog. The reindeer shuffle like bored commuters waiting for a train. You sit still, unsure if you're in your body yet. Eventually, the shaman returns to your side and taps your shoulder with the staff. Good, they say. You kept your feet, which apparently means you didn't get spiritually lost in the upper air. A real compliment around here. As you pack up again, something small but significant clicks into place in your mind. You've been walking across the land all this time. But maybe the land has been walking across you too, leaving its snow-dusted footprints in the soft soil of your chest. You catch a glimpse of the shaman later that evening, alone by the fire, whispering something to a reindeer. Its ears twitch once, then twice. Then it lies down beside them, like an old friend who's heard this story before, but wants to hear it again. You get it. After all, you're the one who just sang to smoke and believed it listened. That night you dream of a door again. This time, it's not made of antlers, it's carved ice. You step through and find a vast library where the shelves are all made of snow. Every book is a riddle, every riddle hums. And somewhere in the distance, a drum keeps time not to measure hours but to remember them. You wake to a sound that's more feeling than noise, like the inside of a hollow drum that someone is dreaming into from very far away. For a second, you don't know where you are. Then the cold kisses your nose, your fingertips flex inside fur mittens, and the familiar reindeer musk air brings you right back. You're still here, still following the quiet maps sketched in hooves and riddles. Today, the shaman walks ahead of the group. Their staff leaves deep, deliberate holes in the snow, like punctuation marks in a story only they can read. A pale fox darts across your path, then disappears under a stone ledge. No one reacts. Apparently, foxes here are just punctuation too. You fall into step with one of the younger herders. They offer you something chewy, wrapped in birch bark. You ask what it is. Reindeer stomach, they say. You blink, then chew. It tastes like regret and smoke. They laugh at your face. That means you'll live a long time. You've heard stranger logic, probably even said some yourself. The caravan pauses at mid-ace beside a grove of stunted trees, twisted by wind and time, into the shapes of dancers mid-spin. You sit with your back against one and feel the bones of it settle against your own. Someone hands you a pouch of warm tea made from tundra moss and melted snow. It tastes like Earth's last secret. And then the drum. It begins again, low and slow, like a distant heartbeat. Except it's not distant at all. The shaman has started the ritual. You are invited to join, not because you're special, but because everyone is invited. That's the rule. You sit cross-legged on a thick reindeer pelt as the circle forms. Smoke from the fire curls around the group like a lazy snake. Someone throws a bundle of herbs into the flames. They sizzle like gossip. This time, the shaman doesn't speak. They just tap the drum, once, twice, then faster. A rhythm builds, and your thoughts begin to slow. Here comes a historical fact. In Arctic shamanic traditions, particularly among the Chukchi Evenki and Sami, drumming was a tool not just for music, but for travel. Not on land, but between worlds. The beat mimicked the hoofballs of reindeer or the flutter of spirit wings. A shaman's trance wasn't a performance, it was a commute. You're not entirely sure you believe in spirit travel, but your spine tingles anyway. The fringe tidbit. Some Sami shamans believed that reindeer antlers were antennae for cosmic signals, tiny transmitters that could tune into the weather of the spirit realm. Which makes sense if you've ever stared at a rack of antlers long enough. They look like lightning if lightning were polite. Historians still argue whether these trances were purely symbolic or actual altered states. You think to yourself even as your own body starts to hum. The drum builds. Faster now. Your eyes are half-lidded. Shapes begin to rise from the smoke. Not figures exactly, more like suggestions. You think you see a woman made of snow, a man with antlers for hands, a child riding the back of a raven. You're either dreaming or very awake. The shaman hums a melody with no words, and it tugs at you like a thread. The others begin to sing softly in harmony with the drum. You catch fragments of their voices, to the hill where the sky bends, to the river with no echo, where the reindeer carries light. You hum too. You don't know the tune. That doesn't seem to matter. Then silence. The drum stops. No one speaks for a full minute. Not out of awkwardness, but respect. You're not supposed to rush back. Like when your soul takes the red-eye flight and needs time to stretch its legs before re-entering, after people begin to laugh and stretch and sip tea like nothing happened. Someone burps. A child starts chasing a dog. The reindeer shuffle like bored commuters waiting for a train. You sit still, unsure if you're in your body yet. Eventually, the shaman returns to your side and taps your shoulder with the staff. Good, they say. You kept your feet, which apparently means you didn't get spiritually lost in the upper air. A real compliment around here. As you pack up again, something small but significant clicks into place in your mind. You've been walking across the land all this time, but maybe the land has been walking across you too, leaving its snow-dusted footprints in the soft soil of your chest. You catch a glimpse of the shaman later that evening, alone by the fire, whispering something to a reindeer. Its ears twitch once, then twice. Then it lies down beside them like an old friend who's heard this story before, but wants to hear it again. You get it. After all, you're the one who just sang to smoke and believed it listened. That night you dream of a door again. This time, it's not made of antlers, it's carved ice. You step through and find a vast library where the shelves are all made of snow. Every book is a riddle. Every riddle hums. And somewhere in the distance, a drum keeps time not to measure hours, but to remember them. You wake with frost in your eyebrows and a vague memory of a dream where a reindeer argued with a cloud. The cloud won, but just barely. The fire from last night has gone to ash, and your bones creak like old timber as you rise. Around you, the camp stirs quietly, with that practiced hush that people learn when silence is survival. The shaman is already awake, sipping broth from a horn cup and staring into the middle distance like they're expecting a message to arrive from the snow itself. You stretch, and something in your spine pops like a frozen branch. One of the older women laughs. "Now you sound like a good story starting," she says, and offers you a piece of dried fish. You chew it thoughtfully, mostly because your jaw is too cold to chew it any other way. Today's journey is long, not in distance, but in meaning. The caravan is heading to a sacred ridge, a place where, according to the group's oral traditions, the sky once cracked open and spilled secrets into the snow. Those secrets, according to the shaman, are still leaking. As you walk, the land shifts beneath your feet, not literally, although it sometimes feels that way, but in tone. The flat openness gives way to low hills, scattered stones, and spindly trees that look like they've been caught mid-run and frozen in place. It's quieter here. Even the wind hushes its voice. You're told to speak in riddles today, not for fun, for safety. See, here's your historical fact. Many Arctic shamans believed that direct speech could attract unwanted spirits, or worse, offend the landscape itself. So they used metaphors, riddles, and roundabout phrases to talk about sacred places, taboo topics, or powerful beings. You don't say, "I'm going to the spirit ridge." You say, "I'm chasing the bone of the sky." It's like calling a lion the golden whisper to avoid drawing its attention. Your fringe tidbit. Some rituals required that even reindeer be spoken to in riddles before a migration. It wasn't just symbolism, it was believed to calm the animals and ensure smoother travel. So instead of "go north," you'd say something like, "Let us follow the shadow that never sleeps," which incidentally sounds a lot cooler. Historians still argue whether these linguistic dances were pure poetry or coded instructions passed down through generations. You find yourself enjoying it, actually. There's something oddly comforting about never saying what you mean, like wrapping your thoughts in a cozy coat before sending them out into the world. At midday, the group stops to prepare an offering. No, not the scary kind. More like a gratitude picnic for the mountain spirits. People lay out strips of dried meat, carved beads, and tiny figurines made of pressed snow and ash. One girl adds a sliver of red ribbon. No one mocks her for it. The shaman begins to hum again. You recognize the melody, sort of. It's changed since last night, or maybe you've changed. As the sun dips lower, painting the snow in rose and gold, the group reaches the ridge. It's not tall, but it rises sharply out of the land like a memory someone tried to bury and failed. The wind whistles here, curling around your ankles and whispering just loud enough to raise the hairs on your arms. You're not told what to expect, just to be still. So you are, still, breathing, waiting. The shaman kneels at the base of a twisted birch tree and begins to speak, not loudly, not even clearly, but with intent. The words are riddled and looped like smoke rings. Where the sky's jaw once opened, we listen for its teeth. You have no idea what it means, but it feels true. Then something remarkable. One of the reindeer, white as bone eyes, rimmed in shadow, steps forward and places its muzzle against the shaman's cheek. Not a push, not a nudge, just a long, unmoving moment of contact. The shaman goes quiet. Everyone goes quiet. The reindeer pulls away and blinks. Then it lies down right there at the edge of the ridge. Later, someone tells you that reindeer only do that when they recognize a traveler. Not a person, a traveler. Someone walking more than one path at once. You don't know what to say to that. So you say nothing. Night comes softly. The stars here don't twinkle. They burn like steady watchfires in the sky. You lie in your blankets listening to the wind breathe over the ridge and wonder if maybe words aren't always the best tools. Maybe riddles work because the truth is shy. It doesn't like to be looked at directly. As you drift off, your mind returns to the reindeer's touch, the riddle about the sky's jaw, and the fact that your feet haven't been cold for over an hour, though they should be. You dream of a spiral path made of antlers winding upward into the stars. The shaman walks ahead, but when they turn, it's you. You're both carrying the same drum, and somewhere below the reindeer watch you climb. The frost this morning doesn't bite it. Kisses cold and delicate like snowflakes that forgot they were supposed to be scary. You sit up, blankets sliding off your shoulders, and the world looks softer, like someone turned the contrast down just a touch. The reindeer is still there, lying near the ridge, not asleep, not alert, just present, as if it belongs to the land more than the land belongs to itself. The shaman moves differently today, slower, more deliberate. There's a hush around them, like a cathedral without walls. You notice people stepping aside a little more quickly when they pass. Even the children aren't playing, just watching wide-eyed. Your boots creak as you walk, the snow crunching like 100 whispered yeses. Someone hands you a carved spoon and a bowl of broth made from roots fish, and what you hope is not fermented moss. It tastes better than expected, which means it probably is fermented moss. Today the caravan isn't traveling, today is for listening. Here's your mainstream historical fact. Many Arctic and Siberian shamanic cultures, including the Evenki, Chukchi, and Sami, set aside entire days not for ritual or movement but for silence and observation. These were believed to be days between moments when the world shifted its weight and you had to stay still to avoid falling through. They called it listening to the land. Not metaphorically, they meant it. The shaman sits cross-legged near a knot of reindeer and begins to drum again. But it's different now. Not rhythmic, not musical. It sounds like breath, like heartbeat, like something ancient clearing its throat. You close your eyes. Not because you're told to, but because it feels rude not to. The wind picks up and then stops. You don't remember falling asleep, but you must have. Because suddenly, you're standing in a dream maybe, or a memory not your own, beneath a sky that bends too low and hums too loudly. A reindeer stands beside you, only now it's speaking. Not in riddles, in clear, simple words. But the words still don't make sense, because they feel like riddles. The stone remembers it says, but the river forgets. Choose which one you want to be. You wake with tears in your eyes, and no idea why. And the shaman is watching you. Later by the fire, they speak not to you directly, but near you, which is about the same. They talk about the spirit journeys some shamans take, and how it's not about leaving your body, but about listening to the parts of yourself that never stopped whispering. Then comes your fringe tidbit. Some Arctic shamanic traditions included practices where reindeer antlers were used, not just as tools or weapons, but as listening devices. Shamans would hold them to the ground, like stethoscopes, believing they could hear the dreaming roots of the earth. Yeah, your earbuds could never. Historians still argue whether these antler-listening rituals were purely symbolic early forms of sound conduction or simply misunderstood observations by later anthropologists. Either way, you want to try it. So you're handed a piece of antler, polished smooth, forked at one end. You press it to the ground like you're eavesdropping on a sleeping god. At first nothing, then a thrum, faint, deep, like a cello string plucked in the dark. Maybe it's just your pulse, but maybe not. Later, the group gathers for a storytelling circle. Except it's not stories tonight. It's questions. Each person takes a turn asking something they don't know the answer to. No one replies. That's the rule. You just ask. Out loud. Into the dark. What color is silence? Does snow miss the sky when it lands? Why did the reindeer come to me and not my brother? You ask your own question. What happens if I follow the spiral path in my dream? No one answers, but someone squeezes your hand. The fire crackles. The snow glows gently under a moon the size of your open palm. The silence here doesn't weigh you down. It lifts you, like warm breath rising in the cold. Eventually, everyone falls asleep where they sit bundled in fur and half-formed riddles. You lie back and let your head rest on a rolled cloak. The reindeer walks past once, then twice, then curls up near the shaman again. You drift not into sleep exactly, but into something that feels like being cradled by the land itself. Your last thought before dreams claim you is this: maybe we talk in riddles because truth has edges, and sleep is the only time we're soft enough to hold it. You wake to the sound of snow falling, but not like rain, not like tapping, more like silence that's learned how to dance. The kind of snow that hushes even the loudest thoughts. The camp is stirring slowly, like a story being remembered one page at a time. Someone stretches near the fire pit, another yawns inside their hood. You roll over and find a bit of snow in your boot. Somehow it's comforting, a souvenir of where your dreams took you last night. The shaman isn't where they usually sit. Instead, there's a small circle of people, and at the center something strange, a ring of birch bark bound together with sinew and shadow. You get closer expecting to be told to stay back, but they part letting you in. This is the last morning of your journey though. No one says so aloud. You feel it in the bones of your fingers, in the way the cold kisses instead of bites. A boy beside you is humming a melody that doesn't quite repeat. The woman next to him braids her hair into a spiral. You wonder if the dream gave her the same question. Your final mainstream historical fact: Arctic shamans didn't just talk in riddles to reindeer. They crafted entire belief systems around the symbolic relationships between humans and animals. The reindeer wasn't simply food or transport, it was the bridge between realms, between living and spirit, between winter and the life it secretly carried in its frozen hands. Some scholars even claim reindeer were seen as reincarnated ancestors, which if true might explain the overly judgmental stare that Wonder gave you when you spilled your soup. And here's the quirky bit. There's documented evidence from Siberia that certain tribes believed reindeer hooves could mark sacred paths invisible to human eyes, like GPS but with more fur and less battery life. Now scholars will tell you this might be poetic metaphor. Others believe these invisible paths refer to migration trails passed down through generations of both reindeer and humans. But historians still argue whether the shamans believed in literal glowing trails, visible only in trance, or simply taught followers to notice natural signs with dream-trained awareness. Back in the circle, someone holds a flat stone up to the sky. It's carved with symbols you don't understand. That's okay. You're not supposed to decode them. You're supposed to notice them. The shaman finally arrives, walking slowly carrying a pouch. It smells like fire and earth and something older than names. They kneel beside the ring of bark and pour out its contents. Moss, bones, dried berries, a twist of antler, feathers, hair. It looks random until it doesn't. They hum low and soft, then begin a final riddle not directed at the reindeer but at you. If your feet forget the way, but your breath still remembers, where will you arrive? You don't try to answer, you just listen. Let the riddle wrap around your chest like a warm fur. After the shaman stands and walks toward the ridge again, and one by one so do you. There's no dramatic ending, no grand farewell, just soft footsteps in snow, and the smell of pine, and the heartbeat of a place that never needed to speak loudly to be heard. The reindeer watches you leave, and as you walk away, something shifts inside you. A silence maybe, or a riddle that now lives under your tongue. And here, as the sky fades into something lighter than dawn, is your final moment. You kneel once more in the snow, scoop a little in your hand, let it melt, slowly, and whisper to it, not words, not thoughts, just a feeling. It understands, and so do you. So now the journey settles behind your eyes, like a soft breath on glass. The snow stops falling, not because the sky is empty, but because it has decided to rest with you. Your limbs grow heavier, not with exhaustion, but with the calm weight of having gone somewhere meaningful, even if your feet never moved. Around you, the forest doesn't vanish. It just quiets. The trees remain their branches, stretched upward like lullabies frozen in place. The reindeer has curled beside you in sleep, its warm breath rising and falling like ocean tides slowed to match your pulse. You can still feel the riddle on your lips, but there's no urgency to answer it. It's the kind of question that changes when whispered in the dark and softens further with each heartbeat. Somewhere far away, a shaman hums not loudly, not urgently, just a sound that wraps around the air and lingers, reminding you that silence is sometimes the loudest guide. Let that sound drift with you now. Let your thoughts stretch long and gentle like shadows at the edge of firelight. And if you dream tonight, maybe you'll walk again with snow underfoot, wind in your ears, and a reindeer that doesn't quite speak but helps you understand anyway. There's nothing left to do, nowhere left to be, only this breath and the next, and the soft riddle of rest.